Ready? Daria, you good to go? Okay, cool. We're live streaming now on YouTube, so nobody's saying anything bad. Appreciate you guys tuning in and excited for another edition of our member spotlight. So today we have two coaches who have been involved, from very early on in our membership program, Daria Sharova and Travis Lewis. So appreciate you guys being here, and we're going to start it off with Daria. Daria is an assistant coach at Montreat. Daria, why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself? And I think Daria is going to talk a little bit about international recruiting and a little bit about her background. So take it away, Daria.
So, hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hope you all have a great day. And so my name is Daria Sharova. I've been a coach in the United States for 5 years. And I lived total for 8 years in the US. So originally I'm from Russia, and that's where my playing career, coaching career started. So international recruiting is something is very important for me. As international student athlete, I came to the United States to play college basketball. Didn't know much about it. Did everything my own by myself. So literally learned ups and downs, rocks and rivers, how to get it quicker and what can bump your process. Took me a while. Took me probably close to 2 years to figure it out, all my paperwork and etc. So that's why I try to, as much as I can, share with other coaches how to get international students in your program if you're interested in it. So, and a couple things I want to talk about first. When you consider to take an international student to your program, it's type of responsibilities that you get that you might not get when you have American student, because American student has parents here, right? Families and etc. International student come to another country, they don't have anybody. So you're the closest persons they probably will have until they make some friends and teachers and etc. So when you start the process, you have to consider where do you recruit players. Yeah. So if your budget allowed to do a full rides, well done, you can get anybody. Okay. So you can be free and learn. I hope you know every country has a different level. If we talk basketball, women basketball, right now in Europe, for example, France, Spain, Russia, strong championships. But it doesn't mean that you cannot recruit girls from Finland, Scotland, or maybe, I don't know, some little country, Serbian school is great. So you have to kind of be open for any levels, If kid doesn't play for a national team, it doesn't mean kid cannot play for you. There's the European basketball is so competitive. There's so many players that you can find a star player who will be was totally scoring your team who never even been invited in the national level. So give yourself time when you if you don't have financial money to give a full rides, because most of internationals need tuition cover, then you have to consider a couple things. You want to recruit from countries where money is equivalent to dollar. So what I always tell coaches, if we live in dollar, I want to recruit players from if their currency is euro, because it's close. I don't want to recruit players from Russia because we're in rubles. I know they cannot afford it, Get a kid from Serbia and not a full ride will hard because they're not a euro. It's hard to afford it again, So that's kind of little thing financial. When you start to do it, you have to consider that. In average, I would say players in Europe probably can pay a couple grand a year, Then you have to think about, okay, if I take international student, what do I need to make sure? Make sure they have a place to live, right? Off campus, on campus. If off campus, how do they gonna drive to campus, right? That's a big thing, Food. If they don't have a car, how do they get a food from the store, If they don't have a roommate. So certain things, my first year, my coach recruited me. She never had international players. Got a lot of problems because we lived so far away from campus, couldn't have a ride. when you start the process with international student, one of the biggest things that takes usually the longest is a visa and paperwork. Send paperwork unless your university, some universities have to have international paperwork notarized through the education agencies in the country. Like there, I was recruited in university in Arkansas. They my all paperwork has to be stamped by Department of Education in Russia. It took 2 months to get it done. So you have to keep it in mind. Give yourself time. Give yourself a year ahead. You know, so kid could like without pressure get step by step things done. Because after how they get the paperwork done, which is transcript, has to be translated to the English language, test scores they don't need besides a TOEFL test. And TOEFL test is an English proficiency test, which you cannot tell kid, international kid, hey, I don't know, Daniel, go take a TOEFL tomorrow. That's a very hard exam. They have to prepare for that. Probably like we prepare for GRE or SAT. That's the same thing with TOEFL. And 95% universities in America would not accept international student without TOEFL. So you have to give yourself time for that, you know? After how that all done and they all put it in, admission accepted, they will receive an I-20. When they get I-20, that's the only paper will give them a visa, which is visa is still not guaranteed. I had a conversation with coach in Bahamas this past summer, and we was talking about get his kids to America, and he said, hey, we get everything, but they get denied visa. So even then, when they get accepted, it's not guaranteed that the kid can come to US. Hopefully it will not be a problem, you know. Most of the time it's not, depends like situations. So visa could take however embassy give you. You know, mine took 2-3 weeks, which wasn't, I think I was very blessed, you know. Some kids might wait for a month. So you see how timing is like so important when you recruit international players. And after how they get visa, they come to US. My biggest thing I told coaches, you take a responsibility by taking an international student in your team. We're having right now girl, Leonie, she's from Cameroon. I don't treat her differently, but I definitely understand her ups and downs and struggles. If kid ask me, and of course I'm female coach, is a little bit different. If kid ask me, coach, can I go get groceries? Yeah, jump in my car, let's go. I will because I know what steps I went through when I was a student athlete. It's not something like you can take easy, because again they come into a different country and they trust you, and some of them, you know, they come to US to universities they didn't like, they might transfer, they might come back home. It's okay because it's a process, you know, you have to adapt to a culture and different environment and everything, but you are the biggest supporting link for them when they come to your team. I think Adam, I can talk about it for 3 hours, so you shut me down.
No. I had a couple questions for you. Can you give some advice to coaches of how to evaluate? You know, you get film on an international player, and it's really hard to tell what level they're playing at and the level of competition. Obviously, the skill level, but yeah, give maybe some advice on that.
Yeah, so this is a great question. It's the most tricky thing because they can make a film look so good. Usually just do research on a level of competition in the country, you know, like if girl comes from Spain and she has a great film, you see her competing against the teams, actual, not in the practice, always have a team, yeah. I would take it with no question because I know that level in Spanish basketball is very high. I know level in Serbian basketball is very high. Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro. When girl come from, I don't know, Sweden or Finland, I will do my research, okay? Because I know that their inside championship is not that strong. So you might ask them, okay, can you send me a few films, you know? can you send me some stats? Can you send me additional information, And sometimes I honestly can tell you, like, there was situations when player didn't play. You know how in Europe, like in Russia, you have different level of championships, and you can be a pro in 16, So some kids might not hit that level, and they might play for some amateur leagues, but they will be successful here in US. So it has to be like, it's a risk. It's always risk. International players is always a risk, and it's up to you. You're willing to take it or not, but you have to put your time and do Zoom calls with them, learn about them, see like if they can provide, if coach speak English, talk to them, so it's kind of like you have to hit every single spot to learn about player, because you can't just tell her, hey, can you come visit here? Unless you're a Division I school, you can pay for that.
What's the biggest difference in the actual style of play and the biggest challenge for players to adjust when they get to the States?
So for females, I will speak on a female and a male as well. Is physicality, definitely speed of the game would be the two biggest thing. If you get, and it's not that different from South America, as much as it's different from Europe or Australia and etc. Because in Europe, basketball is based on fundamentals, on IQ, how to think, how to make a decisions. So you definitely would not have problem with that. But sometimes it takes them time to adjust on the physicality of the game, speed of the game. So.
Gotcha. All right, my last question. Why are there so many lines on the court?
I don't know. I guess so we can stay in it.
No, I'm just kidding. Does anybody have questions for Daria before we let her go? I know I've got a few more, but I want
one quick one. Sorry. How do you find that international players adjust from the FIBA game to the not FIBA game? Do you see any sort of trends that you look for to see how well they'll be able to play?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think honestly, FIBA game. If you take a athlete, for example, and depends on the level she goes. Okay, so if she comes from so-so team to high division 2, there might be a gap between. You have to. It might take them couple months to transition. First of all, rules a little different. Okay, shot clock longer here, shot clock shorter there, which is great, which means their decision making is quicker, yeah? So they might learn the biggest, and I found the hardest thing of transitioning is learning, how to say, my gosh, terminology. So if you got international kid, she doesn't speak English, maybe she speaks some English, you tell her, hey, go set a down screen, cross screen, and she'll look at you and like, coach, what? So you have to be patient to like walk them through the basketball aspect of that, And physicality, I think the first year will definitely be huge. Physicality, they will adjust, you go to the weight room, they will start to work it out well, with a team, they will learn and figure it out. But for some take longer, for some girls, they might never hit the physical part, Then okay, then it's you up to coach. How do I can use it to the best of my ability, She might be a great shooter. All right, let's figure it out so she can play in her strength, But I definitely have to be patient and let them time to transition, And some kids do it right away. Some kids do, But for some kids, it take a while.
Daria, what's next for you? How long have you been at Montreat?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So what's like your career aspirations and, maybe for the next 3 years and long term?
Yeah, definitely looking for, it's two things. Looking to get in a NCAA system, preferably as assistant coach in Division I, but if not Division 2, high Division 2, good level, or become a head coach. So it's definitely on my next step. Constantly looking, working on that, and not constantly. You know how that I look the Zoom meeting and say, don't hunt for a job because you're losing your concentration from your own blessing. So I just try to work on my craft and do what I need to do, get done. And another thing what are huge for me is establish more relationship internationally with countries, do clinics, camps, overseas in Europe, in my country. So start to work from that. Have it tomorrow, actually, coaching webinar. So yeah.
Is your like long-term goal, like eventually you want to be a Division I head coach, or do you want to coach internationally? What's
So
long-term goal?
yeah, I wanna be a Division 1 coach. International coaching, I considered if it would be more as a summer league, like in Australia, somewhere summer, because it's just I'm not sure if I want to live for a year or so away, but I definitely want to build career here. So yeah.
Okay, great. Daria, great job. Anything else that you want to say before we move on?
No, if you have ever any questions, you can find me on Rising Coaches or just go to Madrid website, or I will post it here. Any questions or help with international recruiting, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help, and yeah, we'll do my best.
And Coach Sharova on Twitter, if you need to find her there. Thanks, Daria. Great job.
No problem.
All right. Next, we're going to go to Travis Lewis. Travis is the head coach at St. Francis de Sales. DeSales? How do you say that?
Sales.
All right.
Sales.
6 years there now, right?
No, I actually just finished year 8.
Year
So
8.
time goes fast, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you, Travis, and let you talk a little bit about your path and your journey and kind of what you built there at St. Francis.
Yeah, it's hard to follow Daria up. I mean, she has a expertise. I mean, everybody talks about the video expertise. Everybody talks about the graphics, and I mean, she has the international expertise. Whereas I'm just a basketball coach, still searching to find that expertise. As we talked about when you gave me the privilege to be in the spotlight, like what would I discuss as a high school coach? A lot of times I feel as if high school coaches kind of get underrated. There are triple the amount of high schools that there are colleges. So, I mean, the statistics for people to take high school coaching serious sometimes overweighs how much effort and time and energy that really good high school programs put into building their craft and creating a culture. And for me, I take it personal. So first, there are stats. I was watching a thing about Michelle Obama, and she talked about the difference between stats and stories. So your stats would be what school you went to, where you played at, where you work, the names, those different things. And my stats are, I was a Division I football player and basketball player. I started 4 years for football at Eastern Michigan. I started 3 years for basketball at Eastern Michigan. I'm on 7 EA Sport video games. I played in China, a couple basketball tours. I played in the PBL. I played in the ABA, basketball-wise. I played Arena 1, Arena 2, semi-pro football. I had some workouts with the CFL for football. I've coached at the Division I level. I've coached at the junior college level. I've been an administrator at the junior college level. I'm a current head coach. I am the husband of one of the top 10 all-time scorers at the University of Michigan women's basketball program as a point guard, and my wife. I'm the father of two boys. And those are really my stats. But I think one of the things that makes me special and makes me unique is my story. My mom had me at 15. I don't know who my dad is. March 10th of this year, I lost in the state tournament. March 11th, my wife and I got on a plane and went to Houston for me to go knock on a stranger's door and find out if he was my dad or not. So it has been a journey more so as I grow, not for me, but for those around me. My mom had another kid at 19. My mom kicked me out at 17. I come from a low income housing. I have every statistical reasoning or excuse to be unsuccessful. And because of that, I like to say sports changed my life. And when I add my story to my stats, you know, I said I was a Division I football player as a starter for football and a starter for basketball. But the part of the story that nobody knows is that I walked on as a football player at Eastern Michigan. So everything that I've gained from the time I was 17 until now, I've just earned through hard work. And what makes my story special and makes me passionate and drives me to work each day is that this is the first profession I've been in where, yeah, you have to work hard, but you also have to know someone, right? The network and the community building and the resources in order to grow and improve is not solely based, but heavily based and weighed off of who you know. And I'm grateful for Rising Coaches from the standpoint of they created that platform, given the fact that this is unique territory for me. So just to get back into it, after I got done playing and being a professional, I got into the coaching realm. I came home. I signed a contract to play in Nicaragua, $2,500 a month, $400 a win. I thought I had hit the lotto. The deal fell through. I got to the airport. The team never paid for the ticket. I was on the phone with my agent, back and forth. Ended up not going. I got back to the arena. The only thing I could think to do was go work out. And my college coach said, man, you know, I think you'd be a really, really good coach. I got a graduate assistant position open. Won't you be a GA? And being a GA for me was unique because I played for the coach that I was a GA for. I mean, I was his captain for 3 years. My best friend was the point guard. So when I came on staff as a graduate assistant, I didn't have the unique story of other graduate assistants because I was looked at as just another assistant coach. I mean, I was in charge of all the video, player personnel. I would work guys out after practice. We would do pool workouts as a team. Like, I was given so much responsibility because my coach trusted me. It was at one point we were playing at Mississippi State, and our point guard broke his nose, which is my best friend. So I walked to the end of the bench, and I'm checking on him, and the trainer's checking on him, and the head coach walked down and said, man, sit down. He kind of snapped on me, and then we go in the back, and he says, you know, if you can't play your role, then I'm gonna have to fire you. And that was the first time I had a chance to like separate playing from coaching and understanding the different roles and responsibilities. But that year for me was very, very valuable because it gave me a taste of just the lifestyle of being a Division I coach. Having to be there 4 hours before practice and staying there 2 hours after practice, and the responsibilities of running recruits, being on campus and building relationships across the campus. It was just a different lifestyle, a different perspective on the game. And it was one that I fell in love with. When my GA year was over, I ended up going to, my wife graduated. She's from Toledo. We moved to Toledo. I applied for a couple of high school jobs. During that process, I reached out to the guy at Owens who had recruited a couple of my friends that had played at Owens Community College. And he said, Coach, I got a spot open on my staff. Why don't you just come be an assistant for me? And it just worked itself out. Coach Skaggs, who recently won the state championship at the Division III level or Class C level in Michigan. But he said, I see value in you, so come over, be on my staff. I worked with him for a year. And during that time, over Christmas break, our athletic director died. They created 2 positions when he died, as a head AD and an assistant AD. And I got hired as the assistant athletic director in charge of compliance. And I was over 168 student athletes. I was in charge of all compliance issues with the NJCAA. I was the academic advisor for all 168 student athletes and all 8 teams, as well as being an assistant coach. And then at the end of our first season, the president actually fired Coach Skaggs, and I was the interim head coach for 6 months. We didn't hire anyone until October. So he got fired in February. We didn't hire anybody until October. So it was 5 months that I was in charge. I ended up signing the entire class. That class of 9 guys that I signed ended up going to the NJCAA tournament, national tournament. One went to the University of Miami to play. 2 others went to Marshall, and then 3 others played Division II, and the rest of the guys on that team played NAIA. So it was my only true recruiting class at the college level, and I had some success from it. And then after the time was over and I interviewed, I just knew I was going to be the head coach, and I wasn't selected as the head coach. So I got on with Dave Clark, who they ended up hiring from Mott Community College. And Dave taught me a lot in a short period of time. I can't say that I've been around extremely high knowledgeable guys offensively. So I've learned the game from the time I became a pro until now. And Dave introduced me, Coach Skaggs introduced me to the Kansas high-low. Dave introduced me to the Memphis dribble drive. I really learned his offensive approach, his different technical breakdowns of what happens on the offensive end. And at the end of our first year together, I just wanted more. Like, I was ready to lead. The interview process, being an administrator, being in charge for 5 months made me hungry to lead my own program. And I ended up taking the coaching job at Toledo St. Francis. And when I took over at St. Francis, I think this is when life changed for me in 2 ways. As a junior college coach and having the guys that we had, I mean, Larry Nagel was sitting on the baseline watching games. I had every assistant in the country coming in talking to our guys. I was building relationships with guys across the country, but not knowing and coming from the Division I level and not understanding that it's who you know and people you build relationships with. I just thought because of hard work, if I got a head coaching job, I would eventually get an opportunity to be at the Division I level again. And I walked away from it. And sometimes I look back and I say, walking away from that really took away networking opportunities from me from having guys and having kids that I coached. But running my own program has really put me in position to be successful as a college head coach one day. St. Francis has been a blessing. It is, I would compare it to a Division II institution. I mean, it's $12,000 a year to go there. It's an all-boys school. It's a private school. I am asked to recruit academic students to come play basketball at St. Francis. And we have an active alumni base. I've had alumni take me and my wife to Traverse City for weekend trips. I've sat in meetings and at lunches with alumni to have them write 5,000 checks to take my team over to different trips in different places. I've been at golf outings. I've been at community service events. It's just grown and helped me develop as a coach in so many ways. Yes, I mean, I ran the Beeline 2-guard offense one year. We ran Memphis Drive one year. This past year, with the size and the team that we had, we ran the Bill Self high-low offense. We have a ton of ATOs and baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds. We run the pack line offense. We press after made free throws. So yeah, the basketball piece, I've learned and I've grown and I've developed in that. But I think the way I've become a leader because of the position I am has just it's turned me into a different person. I've never read a book start to finish, even having a master's degree, until I became a head coach. I read it because I needed to grow. I needed to learn how to work. I say head coaching and coaching is social work. I mean, it's 80% social work. You're dealing with attitudes and emotions and kids growing and maturing, and they mature at all different ages. You got to make yourself better on how to handle different situations. I had a kid shot in a drive-by. And he never played for me. He was a JV kid. He got shot in a drive-by. He was a big-time football player at our school. I walked into the hospital and I said, listen, it's time to get out this bed. It's time to get healthy, and it's time to go home. And a week, I went up there every day. I worked with him. It was time to go home. He looked at me and he said, Coach Lewis, I can't go home. He said, if I go home, I ain't going to have nobody to help me take care of myself. The kid ended up living with me for 4 months. Ended up graduating from high school. Has a kid now, a successful dad, goes to work every day. Never played for me at the varsity level, never started for me. It was just me making his life better. I fast forward like 4 years later. This kid came from a low income household. I had another kid who played for me a little bit, never was a starter, never was a captain, played probably 8 or 9 minutes a game. He left and went to the University of Dayton. He was there for 2 weeks. Alcohol and drugs got the best of him. He got kicked out. He came home, got into it with his parents, ended up going to jail. I walked him out of jail. I brought him to my house. I talked to his parents. His mom said he couldn't stay there. I got him involved with rehab. I helped mend the relationship in between the parents. And now he's at Coastal Carolina, going to graduate in 2 years. These are things that as an assistant or not being a head coach, you wouldn't have an opportunity to change people's lives. Because like I said at the beginning, basketball changed my life. Like sports gave me an opportunity to not be a statistic. I was on my way to college and my mom said, you going there to play football or you going there to get a degree? I said, I'm going there to play football. I was always told that if you got a college degree, you were going to be successful. And what I found out is that you have to first figure out what tax bracket you want to live in, and then you have to get the right college degree that goes side by side with that tax bracket. But I've never had people around me knowledgeable enough to tell me that knowledge. So now I just take the lessons I've learned and the things that I would do different and incorporate them into my program. I've been able to because of how I grew up. I mean, when I took over at St. Francis, you were not allowed to fundraise, and I had a negative $1,200 balance budget. I've raised a budget of $22,000 a year without fundraising. I've talked about the alumni support, and I played 40 different scrimmages over the summer in the month of June. We play at 15 different colleges. Each year, my last 5 teams have went to Miami twice, Houston, and Dayton on 10-day trips that would be equivalent to a international trip that the colleges take every 4 years. Like, I've done everything possible to mock it and give our kids a Division I experience. And what I tell our kids, I say the only thing that I ask for out of this is that you pay it forward, right? You get a Division I experience, and the only way you can play for me is that if you truly love it. If you don't love basketball and you're not here to hoop, this is not the right program for you. But if you do, you're going to be prepared to, 1, play at the next level, and 2, I'm going to change your life in some form or fashion. And I just felt important with this spotlight to be able to highlight a lot of those things, because oftentimes, because I'm a high school coach, I feel like when opportunities show up, I don't get a chance to sit at the table and talk about the growth, the development, the experience that I have as a coach. I mean, there are some guys that will get small college interviews that have never called a timeout. They've never walked the sideline. They've never had to interact with referees. And I've ran youth camps. I've done scouting reports. I've ran coaching clinics. Just everything that you can do as a coach, I've done. And I just felt like having an opportunity to be in the spotlight and talk about those good guys at the high school level that are prepared to rise. I think that's what's so unique about Rising Coaches, is just showing and telling your story on how you're ready to rise. So I guess that's the gist.
Yeah, that's great. Travis, what do you want next?
I want to be a small college head coach. Being a head coach has really driven me to understand the value. See, I'm a dad. So when you don't have a dad, you value being a dad. Like that's when you are raised by just your mom. Now, I had a stepdad later in life, but you value being a husband and being able to spend time with your wife and spend time with your kids. And being a head coach has allowed me to create a schedule of high intensity and still give time and attention to my family. So when I sat back a couple of years ago after leaving the Rising Coaches Clinic and said, what path do I want? I think there's 2 paths to get to my ultimate goal, which is to be a Division I head coach, is A, be a Division I assistant and hope that group wins and you get an opportunity because they've won, or take the beeline approach and just always be a head coach and just win where you at and grow where you are and keep getting opportunities because of what you put into it. And I'm not negligent to any one of those paths still. I think for me, at turning 36 tomorrow, the best path for me would be as a head coach, but never passing up the opportunity to be a Division I assistant, because I know that I could have success at that level.
Yeah, that's great. Does anybody have questions for Travis before we let him go? Yeah, happy birthday from Daria on the chat.
I think one thing that I would want to add, Adam, that you oftentimes at the high school level get overlooked from is the recruiting aspect. The guys say, oh, you need a recruiting experience. You need recruiting experience. You need recruiting experience. In Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, South Florida, Texas, there are very, very strong high school recruiting ties between me and the guys in those locations. And every kid is not mandated to play AAU, but every kid is mandated to go to high school. So when you have a relationship across the state with high school coaches, with people at that level, it really gives you a recruiting base. But I think the best tool and growth that I've had as a recruiter has been being at Toledo St. Francis. I mean, I'm convincing a 13-year-old boy to go to an all-boys Catholic institution. And then I'm convincing their parents to pay $12,000 a year in order for them to have an opportunity to play basketball. I think that's a pretty tall task. I think that's something that gives you an upper hand in having different strategies, techniques, and methods in order to learn how to recruit, have a solid recruiting base, and build relationships amongst families and students and kids and relate to them. So I just appreciate you. I appreciate Rising Coaches. I appreciate the opportunity, and what you're doing is life-changing for a lot of people in more ways than you could ever imagine. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Travis. Great job, man. Well done. Well said. Hard act to follow. So I'm not even going to try. We're going to drop the mic and leave it there. But appreciate you guys. And we'll keep doing this every Wednesday and give other rising coaches a opportunity to be in the spotlight and kind of showcase who they are and what they're about. So thanks, Travis. Thanks, Daria. Great job.
Thanks, Adam. Good job, Daria.
Thank you all.